Hi everybody, my name is Gina, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my embedded study abroad trip to Gothenburg, Jonkoping, and Stockholm, Sweden. The purpose of this trip was to provide us with the opportunity to learn about human resource management in a little bit of social welfare context. The group is comprised of both HPA and LAR students, and we were all interested in some aspect of human resources. And we began our trip with a visit to the Volvo group, where we had the opportunity to hear from 4 different members of their HR staff, and they kind of told us a little bit about what their recruiting process is like, what it's like to work for them, and the opportunities that they have for both their employees and for internship students. After that, we were given a private tour of the Volvo Museum, where we kind of got to see the evolution of Volvo's company and where it started and where it's gone and kind of where they think it's going in the future. So that was really cool to see. While we were in Gothenburg, we had the opportunity to speak with some of the students at Gothenburg University, and they were able to have just casual conversations with us about what their higher education system is like, what it's like to go to school there, what it's like to live in the city, and we were all kind of taken by the city as soon as we got there. We really wanted to just get in and explore and learn as much as we can. And the students at the university were very open and welcoming to all the questions that we might have had. They took time out of their days outside of the classroom to sit down and talk with us about any questions that we may have had, and they were really helpful in answering everything that we kind of just threw at them. After staying in Gothenburg, we headed to our next city of Jonkoping. And here we started things with a meeting with the HR representatives for IKEA. A lot of us had never been to IKEA before, so getting to see the store and then getting to see the company was a really cool compare and contrast kind of thing. The big takeaway from that meeting, I think for me, was that they really stressed that when they're recruiting new employees that they don't necessarily look at their resume first. You kind of have to take a step back and see if their personality is going to fit with the atmosphere of the company. And I think that's something that we do the opposite of here in America. There's a lot of pressure on building your resume and putting all those extracurricular activities on there and making it as concrete as possible. And a lot of times we don't take into account, someone's personality might not fit with what the atmosphere that the company is trying to foster. And IKEA really strives to foster a very open and relaxed work environment. No one really dreads going to meetings like we do here in the United States. They take time for fika. It's encouraged, and fika is basically just a 10-minute break in everyone's day, and the entire staff goes into the break room and gets coffee and a snack, and you can kind of sit down and work out any immediate issues that you might be having without having to go back and forth with emails or schedule meetings or do conference calls. And I think that idea, along with the open and welcoming work environment, is something that I personally have brought back with me and will take with me when I'm out into the workplace. We got to visit another local university when we were on shipping. One of the lectures that we were given was how to make an unbiased hiring decision, and we were shown a video where there were 2 candidates being interviewed for the same position. One was a man and one was a woman. And throughout the video, you can kind of see that the man is being favored over the woman for this position. He has things in common with the man interviewing him. And then the woman is kind of being badgered during her interview with questions whether she plans on starting a family or getting married. And those questions weren't necessarily asked for the male candidate. So our task was to decide who we would hire, what kind of mistakes we saw being made throughout the video, how we would go about this process differently, and it kind of gave us a little taste of what the hiring process is like and how to be aware of implicit biases that we might have, to not favor certain people over the other, and you really just kind of have to take a step back and be as objective as possible. Our last stop in Jonkoping was to Husqvarna, and right when you walk in, they had their robotic lawnmower going around cutting the fake grass. We got to see all of their products on display. But what was really neat was that this was one of the most hands-on visits that we had out of all the companies, and I think that was really great to see kind of how they make their products start to finish. We were taken down to the factory floor, went from how the machines carve the materials for the products, how they get assembled. We went to the assembly line. They showed us kind of what each person does, their production levels, what to do if you get behind, how to make up for that. And I think it was really great to see kind of what a normal day was like for this company. We didn't really get to see that for the other ones. So this was just a different side of it, which I think was really good for us to, kind of get involved and see more of what it would be like to work for this company, not just their human resource aspect of it. So once we were finished in Jonkoping, we headed to our last city, which was Stockholm. The first day there, we traveled to the Karolinska Institute, which is where the famous Swedish twin studies were started. We had a lecture on what the studies looked for, how they came about, what their criteria is for being on them, what they monitor, and kind of what they plan on doing with the studies moving forward. It was really kind of surreal to be in the institute and hospital where this famous study started, because I learned about it in so many of my classes at Penn State. So it was really neat to kind of be in the place where this all began. Our last day in Stockholm and Sweden in general was an entire 3-day to just explore the city. And in our meetings prior to leaving for the trip, the professors had said how Stockholm was this beautiful city and that we would love it, and they were not wrong. So to start the day off, we took a ferry boat over to the Vasa Museum, which is breathtaking inside. Inside is the Vasa ship, and it's the centerpiece of the entire museum. And each floor tells a different piece of the ship's history. One section tells how it was built, one tells how it sank, one describes the crew members, and they had their skeletons all laid out, described who they were, what they ate, what their role was on the ship, and described when the ship sank, when they found it, and how they tried for so long to kind of dig it up. And then one of the most amazing facts from that entire experience was that the ship that is on display in it was 95% original, which is just absolutely incredible when you think about the fact that it had been underwater for over 300 years. So to have that piece of history just sitting right in front of you, knowing that it is basically the entire real ship in its entirety, is just absolutely amazing. After we finished at the museum, we went back over and saw the palace, and we got to see their meeting rooms, their throne rooms, went into their cellar, where they described, the great fire that burnt part of the palace down, what happened with that, how they kind of bounced back from it. We also got to hear the changing of the guard ceremony, which was pretty neat. After that, we took the time to kind of explore the old town. And back into the old town, it's just lined with cobblestone alleyways with tons of little shops and outdoor cafes and restaurants. And there was just this sort of calming atmosphere that really put our minds at ease, and we felt comfortable being in this city. It was sad that this was kind of like our last day and then we had to head back to the United States, but I think we were all really happy that we had this experience. I personally hadn't heard much about Sweden. I didn't really know much about their people or their culture. So when we had the meetings to prep ourselves for it, it was just really interesting to learn about, how their offices run, what their healthcare system is like, their education system, to kind of give us, that strong background that we needed so that we would be comfortable for when we went over there. It's definitely an experience that I'm going to keep with me for the rest of my life. It's a trip that I recommend for any incoming HPA student. You really just have to sink yourself into their culture and take in everything around you. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.